everybody, to the Solving Blockchain's Interoperability Challenges panel. Panelists, please join me up here when you get a second. Here we go. Right, so as the panelists come to join us, we are here to discuss one of the major blockages to mass adoption of blockchain, which is interoperability. So whether you're a developer, you're looking to integrate blockchain into your platform, maybe an NFT collector, gamer, I don't know, something else, mass adoption matters to you. So for the next 45 minutes, I'm going to be discussing here with our panelists some of the challenges of interoperability, some of the solutions for interoperability, and what the future holds. So we will be talking for the next 40 minutes or so, taking some questions at the end, and that is how things are going to flow today. So the last bit for me is going to be a quick introduction of these beautiful panelists that I have here on stage today. We have Clem Chambers, is the CEO of Online Blockchain. He has many years in the gaming space, many years in financial trading, very successful in crypto trading, and has promised a spicy discussion today. So Clem, I'm counting on you for that.
Jalapeno.
Then we have Irina Benfrid. She is the B2B Partnerships Lead at Rubic. This is a crypto exchange aggregator. Irina is very passionate about user experience, is simplifying everything for everyone. And then we have Ty Everett. He is the CEO of Project Babbage. Ty is a developer and an entrepreneur in the Bitcoin space. And Ty has told me how passionate he is about creating standards for developers within the BSV blockchain space in particular and beyond. And last but not least, we have Evelyn Nomayo. She is a researcher at Trinity College, Dublin. And Evelyn will bring the academic perspective to today's discussion. And she will be talking about the challenges within interoperability and the research she has done there. So let us get started. First of all, with a more general question to set the stage for everybody here. So as I mentioned, one of the major challenges for mass adoption of blockchain is interoperability. So let's go down the line here and explain why this is the case. So Clem, I want to just start with you on that.
Well, you could say the reason it's the case is people keep coming along and fragmenting it. You know, if you had one blockchain, you wouldn't have a problem with interoperability, but people come along and say, I can make myself a billionaire doing this as well, and they come up with a different set of standards and a different set of tokens, and there's that fragmentation that goes on. So people like myself with the Umbria bridge basically try to unfragment it by having a bridge, and that's our solution to that. So really it comes from the fact that people keep wanting to do things differently, which is the same reason why we've got different plugs around the world. There's no reason why we can't all have one plug, but you go around the world and it's funny shapes here and funny shapes there and funny shapes there, because someone had a better idea. Very
good. Irina, what is your summary there?
I think that the main challenges of the interoperability right now is because there are really lots of participants and they're growing like almost daily. And it is really like a question how to connect, how to deal with each other from different perspectives. How it is for developers, how it is for users, and how it is for every participant of the whole like crypto industry. And especially if we are talking about growing, and especially if we are talking about sustainability, and especially if we really want to bring more users and to bring lots of them. I think that's the main challenges that currently are within this topic.
Very good. And Ty, please.
Aligning people who have different perspectives around this stuff and come from different backgrounds is particularly something we need to consider when talking about interoperability. There's different blockchains, and then within one blockchain, there's also different competing interests and companies if you have a large enough ecosystem. For developers, I think the challenge here is clear. Do you want to build your app once, or do you want to build it 5 times? If there's 5 different wallets who all have 5 different ways of building apps, then you've got to build your backend 5 times to capture all the different people who happen to be using a particular blockchain. So by standardizing developer experience and getting a lot of wallets on board, whether you're talking about single chain or multi-chain interoperability, we need to make sure that people can build their apps once and then, wallets can integrate and have a standard interface for creating transactions and doing all the things we do when we talk about blockchain. I happen to be a proponent of a one-chain solution on top of Bitcoin SV because I think it's, the most viable in terms of low fees and high-volume transactions. They solve lots of different use cases, but it's important that developers have the tools they need to build their app one time and not 5 or 10 times.
Very good. And I just wanted to ask the audience one question before we go on here on Ty's point. Who here in the audience believes that we're headed towards a world of one blockchain? Okay, all right. Who here in the audience thinks that we are headed to a world of multiple blockchains? All right, so let's see if the opinion changes by the end of this panel. Great. Okay, Evelyn, please, your summary.
All right, so I think I'll come from the perspective of the different types of consensus protocols that are used for developing blockchains. And how do you communicate when you have different rules guiding the consensus protocol? So that's where the issue comes in as well. So, and also, the fact that it takes time for different blockchains to propagate or to send information, right? And this could also be a challenge in communicating. So your information, one blockchain's information could be ready, the other one could not be ready. And this leads to latency. So imagine that you have a product that is time sensitive. When you have different information coming from different angles at different times, it leads to latency, problem with latency. So that's where I'm going to be talking about.
Excellent. And we might dive into that in a little bit down the panel, Evelyn. Thank you so much. And just to give everybody in the audience an idea here, can you guys please give us some real-world examples of how interoperability is used within the blockchain ecosystem and how this is working in the real world? So Clem, since you're sitting right here, I'll start with you.
Well, it's what we do, because Umbria is a bridge. So if you have Ethereum on Matic and you want it on Ethereum, you want to put it back, you use our bridge to do that. And if you want Ethereum to go from Ethereum chain onto Polygon, I called it Matic, I'm old-fashioned, and because you want to play Red Village game or something, we do that for you. And it's effectively banking. The trouble is, the mechanisms of doing that are expensive and potentially very expensive and slow and potentially very slow, and there are obviously security risks left, right and centre. So it's really a frictional problem. You could actually bury all this stuff and you'd never see any of it at all, and it could just happen. But in the nature of the way that our economic systems work, where everybody's fighting over each other, basically, it's likely never to vanish, and there's liable to always be these portals where you can go from one currency, it's basically Forex. You've got Swiss francs, you want to get pounds to buy a house in London. So you have to go through the interoperability of your currency.
Yep.
And it's the same challenge, and it was hundreds of years ago when noblemen rode around on horses with letters of credit. And today it's still a big issue with Forex, and now we've got it in crypto.
Yeah, Irina, I bet you have something to add to that.
Yes. Actually, I think the main point here is when we're talking about real-world examples, what real world we're talking about exactly? Because if we're talking about everyday life, then ideally, in the future, I wish that it would be very easy, to go somewhere and just to buy whatever you want with whatever token you have in your just phone or your wallet. Do we have such cases? I know that there are some cases when you can buy a Coke from a vending machine with a crypto. This is a real case. And how it is done, it's a question, how to make it easy and how to make it affordable for any tokens that the users have. So this kind of the real world. I think right now there are more cases when it is within the Web3 industry. When we're talking about interoperability, how the chains may connect, how the users may easily interact between the chains, or how they can move any assets between the chains. This is the example. And it would be interesting also to see the cases when Web 2 is moving to Web 3, when there is something that is available in Web 2, in the real world where we are now, and how it may be sold or traded or accessed through Web 3. that will be interesting to see, like these kind of cases, in my experience.
Very good. And Ty, could you give us some examples of real-world use cases, maybe from the intra-blockchain point of view?
Sure. I mean, when you zoom out and you ask yourself, what is blockchain for? I tend towards thinking it's for enterprise use cases, meaning let's get people together and do things that we couldn't do without blockchain in terms of facilitating more efficient exchanges of value via smart contracts. For example, in the logistics industry, right, we've got the delivery of packages by different potentially competing companies, FedEx and DHL and whoever else. They've all got an interest in getting packages from place to place without needing to have inefficiencies in that process, right? How many people have gotten 3 different delivery drivers at their house within like 2 days delivering packages? Like, why don't we aggregate this and then have less trucks on the road? And so we need interoperability in creating a blockchain-based platform for people to solve logistics puzzles across networks, right? So that people are competing to define the most fuel-efficient solutions to package delivery in aggregate. And that way we have a more green and more efficient economy. And we can do that with smart contracts in the enterprise by building a platform that actually allows different people to compete for providing those solutions. It allows different companies to offer data, offer drivers, offer different delivery mechanisms that otherwise might not be available, but which, when taken together, creates a more efficient solution for the entire network. That's the kind of interoperability that I think is truly disruptive and that is going to propel things forward, right? That's the kind of interoperability between companies, even if they're on the same blockchain, that I think is going to lead to the biggest impacts globally.
Thank you, Ty. And Evelyn, did you have a real-world example that you wanted to share?
Right, sure. I just look at the finance industry. Banks, for instance. They need to talk to each other. Yeah? And if you have banks that have different protocols, again, different...
Interbank settlement, right?
Yeah, for settlement. It's difficult, you know, so that's one huge challenge. And also smart cities, for instance. How do public safety? For example, if you have a system that actually talks about or that provides information about traffic and all that, right? And another system that needs to know what's going on with traffic. If they're not talking to each other, that's commotion, right? So that's why it's so important that we have interoperability, right? So those are the challenges that we face, not having all these different systems being able to speak with one another.
Right, it's like standard mechanisms by which we could facilitate incident response.
Absolutely.
Right, so you could have a standard protocol for saying, hey, here's something that happened. Now, can we please take all of the traffic lights who are on this path to this disaster, and can we actually, make it so that people are going to get there faster and help people, right?
Absolutely.
Even across agencies. That kind of thing is super valuable. I'm looking forward to that, man. Like, that's going to be really cool. We're going to help more. That's going to save lives, like literally.
Absolutely.
Can we build that, please? That'd be a fun future to live in.
Very good, guys. Yeah, I wanted to elaborate on some more of the challenges that we're facing with interoperability. We've already started talking about this. But let's talk about scalability challenges. This is a super big issue that we discussed. Plenty of blockchains have scalability limitations. I know that. But actually, Irina, I wanted for you to talk a bit about scalability and how we face some of those challenges when it comes to interoperability.
It's interesting that you ask me because I'm not a super tech guy among all of us here. About scalability, like usually when we're talking about really scalability solutions, we need to understand that if you want to bring more users, and if we're talking about like a huge amount of new users because you want the industry to develop, it means that the solutions that we're talking about, they should allow it to do. If so many people may come or so many transactions will appear or like the volume of transaction will increase, like how the solutions that we are talking about, how they will address it. And right now, like probably all of you know that what are the interoperability like solutions. It's either bridges or like some platforms that help to move assets from one chain to another chain or between a chain, like to make it faster. And again, like how scalable they are is a big question, and how they can really accommodate the amount of users or the amount of value or the amount of transactions that will be happening. I think that's where it's mainly about. But again, it would be nice to hear the perspective from people who are very much into technical questions.
Yes, and this is why, Ty, I would love for you to elaborate on this issue. I know you have a lot to say about scalability challenges and how we can solve them.
Yeah. The cheaper your blockchain is, the more people will make transactions on it. So I'm going to speak more towards the within a single blockchain view of interoperability, right? But across industries and use cases we discussed. And if you make a lot of transactions, you've got more signals in the blockchain. Blockchains are public fundamentally, or at least the ones that I care about, because private blockchains are really just centralized databases, in my opinion. But you've got public transactions being made, and more of them because it's cheaper. And so reducing the cost of transactions, which you can only do on blockchains that actually scale properly, is going to facilitate more publicly available information and therefore more opportunities for dialogue and coordination across different applications and use cases. And so if everybody's very hesitant to make a whole bunch of transactions because maybe on Bitcoin BTC you can only make 7 transactions per second, which in my opinion is ridiculous, 5 to 7 depending on how you look at it, you know, that doesn't create much opportunity to talk about this publicly available data and these signals and sort of inputs that can be used to coordinate more interoperability across different use cases and systems, right? So more scalability from my side is significantly better for interoperability for that reason. And the way that we scale the network matters. We need to make sure that we scale using a UTXO-based architecture, it's called. So sorry, but Ethereum is an account-based architecture, and it can't really work with the kinds of transactions we need. You know, scalability is important. There are some really great minds working on it, and the more transactions you have, the more opportunities we have to look at each other's data when it's public, analyze it, and think about how it can lead to a more efficient economy as a whole, right? So, for example, you know, these like we talked about with you know, incident response, right? You've got a transaction that comes out saying, hey, someone needs help. Well, now things can kind of reorient around that because it increases efficiency. And that kind of thing is only possible when all of our transactions are out there publicly. And that's only possible when it's economical to make transactions for literally everything. And that's why we have 1 million of them per second on Bitcoin SV.
Okay. So we have a strong opinion here. And Clem, like I said, you promised to be spicy. So I'd love to hear your response to what Ty just said and talk to me about the usefulness of blockchain tech. Because when we talked before, I know you were saying, where is it? Where are the useful applications? Where are they? So tell me what you think.
So first of all, very simply, don't worry about scalability. It always turns up, right? And, you know, we've been through so many generations. Oh, yeah, they invented crypto kiddies and there was congestion for a bit and then there wasn't. Oh, the ordinals came along. Oh, there was congestion in Bitcoin and then there's not. It will always be solved. It always has been solved. It doesn't matter what industry in computing you've been in. Everyone's always been going, oh, what happens when the hard drives can't get bigger than 20 megabytes? And here we are, 4 terabytes and all that stuff. So the capacity will always develop and develop pretty much instantaneous to the demand. My point about where are the apps is, where are the apps? Everybody I meet who are developing, they're developing what someone else developed. And all these companies are trying to make themselves billionaires by copying what someone else made themselves $1 billion with. So it seems to be that everybody's trying to steal everyone else's idea rather than have new ones and make great apps that I want to use. I mean, when we all got into blockchain and Bitcoin here, I bet you all went, holy cow, what is this? This is amazing. I love this. Oh, I can do this. I can do that. Oh, that's great. And since then, what happened? We got some bored apes, yeah. But the actual potential for blockchain and for crypto and blockchain is gigantic. But why isn't anybody doing it? Well, I mean, why aren't they? Why is there no decent metaverse product? I mean, I was doing metaverses in the 90s with AOL. Why hasn't somebody taken a Air Warrior or a British Legends or a Gemstone or a World of Warcraft and put in a crypto? You know, not some crummy game with some blob that moves about, but a really great game where you can actually play it and, you know, actually make some money and sell that sort of extreme pain that you spent a month winning for $500. Why aren't people doing that stuff? And everyone says they're doing it, but where the hell is it? So, you know, when it comes, I think the next step is the currency side of things is going to drift off because it's going to get killed by government. And then we might get some applications that involve tokens and crypto and all this, and open blockchains and applications that will make you go, yes, I love it. And that's what I'm waiting for.
I don't know, man. Like, I agree with you. There's a lot of really, really, really bad ideas on certain blockchains. And I don't know. It could be fun to, like, get rid of all the passwords on the whole internet or something. That would be a fun use case. That would be new and interesting and something you can't really do otherwise. And, like, we need to see more of that. I do think there's going to be room for regulated financial assets. It creates efficiency when you can put those assets on the blockchain. The settlement costs can be reduced, but that takes time. And technology does take some time to develop. But in terms of, it's been 15 years since Bitcoin got released, and we're just now talking. Bitcoin got released when I was 9, and now I'm 24, and I'm saying to myself, why wasn't this stuff figured out when I was 10? This is ridiculous.
Too fast.
We need to have unified systems for actually creating transactions so that people can build use cases, like I said, without building your app 10 times or 5 times to support all the different chains and all the different identity standards. We need to unify this because this is basic stuff. And then we can move on to building cool things, advancing the technology, getting certified, government-backed identities on chain, integrating all this together. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what people want to build after we have that, right? Like, what if we had a world where people were standardizing this stuff and aligning it and being interoperable, right? Yes, Babbage runs a wallet, but also there's other wallets, and we may not agree about everything, but we should try to agree about how a user can request the creation of a Bitcoin transaction within an app. That way more apps actually want to request Bitcoin transactions. That's the path towards the development of the technology that, yes, takes time, but is going to get there if we can manage to coordinate. That's what we need in this industry, in my opinion. But fundamentally, I agree with Clem over there.
Yay, we love the claps. Okay. So I know another issue, another barrier to mass adoption also are some of the security challenges we have out there. We also have quite a few scammers. I'm sure you guys have heard plenty of stories in the media about people even doing jail time because they've been doing scammy things. So tell me about some of the security issues that we are facing when it comes to interoperability and in the space in general. And Irina, I'm going to start with you on that.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I do agree with Ty that we should really do an effort, like an industry, how to solve some issues together. And about security thing. Security is the main barrier for new users to join, because people are really very scared, like how it works and how not to lose money and how to not to be very stupid to understand how it really works. And we all know that it is not secure at all. First of all, you may lose money even if you are protected, even if you do what it should be done, you still may lose it. Second, there's so many bad ideas and bad projects who are trying to steal other people's money instead of thinking how to make it better for the whole ecosystem and for people. Like, that's why it's really like quite a challenge, you know. And I also may say from our experience, Rubic did survive 2 hacks. It was the worst time ever for our project.
Imagine.
But at the same time, it does keep you shaked, and it does keep you like knowing that this may happen anytime, and you really need to be very persistent and like very, very serious about security. And also, it does help you to go through regular audits. It's not pleasant at all. It was really like a nightmare for the whole team, and especially because we are so committed to users, like, and we don't know that it's somebody's money, and people like really stressed and like really mad about it. So I should say yes, there are lots of security challenges, and especially because so many people who want to steal somebody's money, and it's quite easy still to do these attacks because of interoperability problems, actually. If you communicate better, if we really were connected better, if there were some standards how to do it, it would be much easier to stop these security things that are happening from bad guys. That's what I think.
Good. And Evelyn, I promise I'm coming to you in one sec. I'm going to finish the security issue first and then to you. Clem, I know that when we were talking, I think you used the term like a nuclear football or something when it came to security challenges when it comes to crypto especially. Tell me what you're seeing in the interoperability area there.
I mean, it's a nightmare. I mean, there's just not a risk surface for those mathematicians out there that get this. It's a risk gasket. It's so multi-dimensional that it's the Achilles heel of the whole of crypto, full stop. And as far as the original idea of being self-sovereign and holding your own assets in your back pocket, unless you're a poor person, you've got to have a nuclear football with you, right? I mean, who wants to carry 10 million bucks around in their back pocket? Nobody, right? 500,000? Anybody fancy doing that? So you can't really be your own custodian. So the whole decentralized self-custody thing is basically ridiculous at this point in time. And I don't see any solution.
You can do a split key architecture, and you can have threshold signatures so that you have one signature from the on-device, but then you have other signatures that come from people that hold keys, so that you have multiple people that have to sign. Right?
I rest my case. What a load of mumbo jumbo, right? A nuclear football, and I've got two servers that I talk to with my key, and they've got keys, and they write the signature together. Complicated mathematics, blah blah blah. Lose the keys, everything goes to shit. So it's just not secure.
Well, you can have a 3 of 5. So if you lose 2 of the keys, you can still do it. It's resilient, right? And that's what's going to solve it. You have to think outside the box and really think disruptively. There's a lot of bad ideas here, but there's some good ideas too. And as we develop these things, I think it's going to be take some time, but let's figure out that hard math and build these things resiliently.
And this is where I think the user experience comes in. Like Irina was saying before, we need to make these things easy, because even I don't understand what Ty is saying when he gets down and dirty with the technical details like that. So we need to get to a point where everyone in this room and in the world can understand and do these things easily. So I understand Clem's point too.
So what's the academic angle on this, Evelyn? What's your take?
I think he's asking Evelyn.
What was your question, Clem? Sorry.
I wondered what our friend on the end take was it.
Well, I wanted to ask Evelyn about latency issues, because I know that you do quite a bit of research on federated learning, and this is an area that you have so much in-depth research on and knowledge on. So can you share to us what kind of latency issues we are seeing with interoperability in blockchain?
Right, yeah, like I said previously about some latency problems because of different consensus protocols and the likes. And one solution that I'm exploring at the moment is the use of federated learning to see how we can predict latency. Just to explain a little bit about what federated learning is all about, it's like you get, rather than you just training data, it's like decentralized training of data. So each computer in the network is actually training their data within their own systems. So it's not sharing the information. So that's one way of preserving privacy. So with federated learning, you're able to predict the occurrence of latency. So the idea behind what I'm looking at is how do we reduce latency? Because we know that communicating between different blockchain leads to high latency. But how do we reduce it? So this is where federated learning comes into play, to see how to predict the demand for certain information. So it provides it. It uses cache. It uses a lot of system to have the information ready beforehand rather than waiting for it to be requested for. So that is the research area that I'm exploring at the moment.
Have you checked out any of the literature around like the Mandela architecture of Bitcoin?
No, that's interesting.
So there's some nodes at the center that are very well connected, and they're the ones that process a high volume of the transactions. And they're very, very well connected. So you send a transaction into that core network, and it's basically everywhere pretty immediately, right? And it propagates pretty widely. And so it's just a matter of getting to that core network. And if you have a single blockchain, then that's all you have to solve, right? If you talk about this multi-chain where there's all these bridges and different consensus mechanisms and things like that, things do get very, very complicated. And that if you believe in a multi-chain future, there's a lot of places where we do need to do a lot of research. But for networks like Bitcoin SV that have a mandala architecture, our policy is simple, right? Just get us the transaction in one place, and very, very, very quickly, right? The completeness of the graph, right? You're familiar with graph theory.
But the truth of the matter is that that's the ideal situation, but
1.
in reality, it's not like that.
1.3 is the average graph distance on BSV. So just in terms of BSV, just get us the transaction for the Bitcoin SV transaction, and then we'll propagate it around our network. For everything else, it does get complicated, and that is an interesting area of research.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've already moved into the solutions towards interoperability part of our panel. So Irina, tell me about some of the solutions that you see out there.
Like one of the solutions is exactly what Rubic is doing. You all know that one of the solutions is bridges. Like we are aggregator of bridges and dexes. And why we think that there are like better solutions when you may provide whatever we provide as an aggregator, because if some of the bridges is compromised or if some of the bridges is not working, like it's easy for the users to use another one, and because we have a smart agent, like it can reroute a user into a different best way, like if the user wants to swap or to trade the asset between 80 blockchains. So this is one of the solutions. The other solution may be something that will be really easy and intuitive for the users, because as I said, as we just discussed, like so many people are into it, so many people with different backgrounds, different education, and different experience, and it's not easy sometimes to understand what it's about. And it would be good if there would be some educational things like how it really works, or like how it's really like better to do it with not making any mistake. I think this also can be a good solution.
Very good. And Clem, I know we've talked about a lot of the challenges, but what do you see as some of the solutions to interoperability?
Well, I mean, I think most of them are already in place. And, there's this underlying dialogue between centralization and decentralization. And really, if you're a true believer, you believe in decentralization and you believe in decentralized solutions to all these things. And they exist. They're slow, but the blockchains are slow. So if you want them to be faster, the blockchains have got to be faster. And in due course, they will be. Will it ever be the case where the interoperability issues will disappear? I think the answer is no. And you can see interoperability problems in all technologies. I mean, the EU had to pass a law to force Apple not to have a stupid edge connector, right? So people in government had to come in and say, stop making interoperability a difficult issue here. Just use this plug, will you? And so if people in an industry that's, the biggest industry in the world cannot sort that out and make that disappear, you can see there's really only ever going to be a rolling thunder of somebody fixing someone else's problem for them. And we get paid for that. I mean, somebody wants Ethereum on Arbitrum, they pay us to get that Ethereum back onto Ethereum chain again. So we try to do it as fast as possible, and we try to do it as cheaply as possible. We do a pretty good job of that. And we make money from that. So at the end of the day, it's really trying to make that go away, and it never probably will.
Hey, and Ty, please, what do we have to nail in the intra-blockchain world for developers to get one uniform base protocol layer? What do we have to do?
Well, I mean, you have to really align on wallets, as I mentioned earlier, but I want to touch on kind of the regulation, what we're talking about. There are blockchains out there who are open to being regulated and open to having the EU come along and say, no, you have to do certain things. And there are those that aren't. If you're going to have a globally scalable blockchain, you need regulatory compliance. And it's important that we're open to being regulated eventually when we do become mature and when we do achieve a certain degree of traction so that people are interoperable when it comes to digital identity. Yeah, I mean, within Bitcoin SV, wallets, developers, people who have competing interests sometimes need to come together in the intra-blockchain, right, within the same blockchain, to create unified standards for things so that as a whole, our network is a compelling option for enterprises and governments who are interested in regulatory compliance, but also investing in things that are not going to change, things that are standardized, and applications that are going to scale to meet the demands of the next generation of technology. We need all of those things, and we're working on it.
Excellent. Now, we have about 7 minutes left. Is there anybody in the audience that has, oh my gosh, okay, we have some questions. So I will start with this lovely gentleman right here. Just wait for the box.
Thank you very much. Assume you have the heavenly powers to make two major changes to make the ecosystem more interoperable. What those two changes would be?
Who would like to take that?
Make the wallets have the same standards for two things, right? Digital signatures and encryption. Use type 42 keys so you have multiple protocols and you can drive things. But yeah, digital signatures so you can sign transactions, and encryption so that you can have privacy, for goodness sakes, across all wallets.
I will say to combine efforts. We already touched it a little bit here, that if everyone in the industry will combine efforts, even if we have different interests, just to find something in common, I mean, it's obvious, the growth and the sustainability of the whole market into the future. Like if we just sit and talk, like how to solve something, I think this will really change a lot. And the other one, how to make it more friendly and how to make it more simplified and how to make it more user-friendly for newcomers, those who want to join, those who heard a lot about it and want to be part of the market or part of the ecosystem, but really struggle with how to do it. I think this thing also will change a lot to make it faster and to make it easier.
Good. I think we had Robin has a question up here in the front.
This box thing kills me. I think it's so funny. Thank you. Thank you all. Clem, I'm a little confused. What company do you represent?
Online blockchain.
Okay, and that's a bridge.
Yeah.
Who's doing 2 terabytes right now?
How do you mean doing 2 terabytes?
You mentioned 2 terabytes. Who is processing 2 terabytes of data right now?
Oh, no, I
That
was
was
talking
4.
about hard drives. Sorry.
Aha, okay. All right. Thank you, Ty. I agree with everything you've said. You say it so eloquently. You wrap it all up, and most people aren't aware at the level that you're aware, and I think it's incredibly important that you shared this on stage today, so I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you being here.
Let's build some fun things together.
Fuck yeah.
So right behind you, Robin. Yeah.
Hi, great job, by the way, the panels. So I'm pro multi-chain, by the way, so I don't believe we should have a single chain, but I believe we need something that could like unify all the chains. So I would direct my question to Ty. So what do you think about chain abstraction, which is a way to abstract multiple chains or fragmented liquidity across the chains into a single entry point, rather than having a single chain with the same data signature across different chains? Because right now we have multiple chains, Ethereum, EVM chains, we have layer 2s, layer 3s,
Right.
we have UTXO chains, Bitcoin and so on. We have Solana. So I don't think there's a future where we can bring all this into a single chain, right? But I do believe there's something called multi-chain, where you have like where you can kind of like unify all these chains, all this liquidity. So what do you think about chain abstraction?
Interesting perspective you have there. I mean, people used X.25, which is a alternative to the internet. It was, made by the telcos and everything, and they built some things with it. And I think that persisted around maybe until the early 2000s. There was a lot of money made by consulting companies who went to X.25 based businesses and ported their solutions, just built a migration path from these fundamentally didn't win the network effect game, couldn't scale, couldn't work properly, right? Flawed architectures to packet switch networking over internet protocol. And there's a lot of money to be made, I think, in creating, they're going to be tailor-made to particular applications that actually have a lot of volume and traction. But when it comes to, say, EVM-based solutions, right? I think the Bitcoin CPU that I presented yesterday creates an opportunity for an interoperability layer where we can compile something like Solidity directly to a multi-transaction chain on UTXO-based ledgers like BSV at significantly reduced cost, mind you. That'll be one thing. So there's going to be some tools for developers and consultants who are going to help with this process. But fundamentally, I think that those companies are just going to have to migrate, right? They're going to have to create, a 12-hour maintenance window. You open up the app the next morning, and it's going to say, "Oh, welcome back. Let's go through this little setup wizard where you're going to, move over to this new thing, and then suddenly you're going to have all your assets." Because on any blockchain worth its salt, you're going to be able to just take all the transactions that have existed on the previous one and just rewrite them, and then all your data is just going to be there, and maybe that's how it's going to go.
And that tool already exists because Xiaowei built it for porting code to E, from E, right? The tool already exists, right? Xiaowei XMan already built a portability code. You could take your Solidity contracts or your Solidity and turn it into script instantly with like 99% accuracy.
He did build an script transpiler so that you can take your Solidity code and move it over, and that's cool. However, it is not one-to-one, and I think we can get to a one-to-one solution using some new tools that have been coming out in the past couple of days. I don't know. The future will be interesting. We'll let the market kind of find the best solution.
Sorry, we have less than, so just really, really quick, I want to go down the line. Give me, how long is it till we're going to see mass adoption? Just a quick answer. Evelyn, start with you. How long until we see it, mass adoption of blockchain?
Say that again?
How long is it going to be until we actually see mass adoption of blockchain? What do you think? Super quick.
I think in the very near future, because a lot of people are getting to understand blockchain. Blockchain is not an easy concept, but a lot of people are getting into it. So I'm thinking maybe in the next 5 years.
Next 5 years.
Next 5 years.
Ty, quick, just give me a number.
Sure. I hope that, my mom works in the medical industry and she has to deal with 20 passwords every single day. And I hope that by the time she retires, 10, 15 years, something like that, we have no more passwords on the internet. And so 10, 15 years.
Irina.
I agree, 10, 15 years, yeah.
Clem?
Well, if people are still talking about a blockchain,
very optimistic.
it's not ever going to happen.
Never going to happen.
It has to disappear underneath the waves of other things for it to be part of the mainstream.
All right. And just one bit of food of thought for you guys. Is it a good thing that we're sitting up here talking about lots of different blockchains and how they need to work together? Is that a good thing? Is that sustainable? Is that the world we're going towards? I don't know. Let's see. Thank you so much, you guys. Enjoy the conference. Talk amongst yourselves.